15 doctors surrounded the billionaire's hospital bed, machines beeping in chaos, lives hanging on every second. They had money, power, and the finest technology, but nothing worked. Then, in the corner of the room, a quiet figure noticed something no one else dared to see. He wasn't a doctor, wasn't rich, and wasn't supposed to speak. He was the black janitor's son, and what he uncovered would shatter every assumption about genius, privilege, and who society chooses to listen to. The question is, why did nobody believe him until it was almost too late? Before the chaos of that night, life for Marcus was simple, almost invisible. He wasn't the billionaire, wasn't the patient at the center of flashing monitors and urgent whispers. He was the son of a janitor, the kind of man people passed in the hallway without ever learning his name. Marcus had grown up surrounded by the sterile white walls of the hospital, watching his father work quietly in the shadows. He spent hours there after school, reading science books discarded in waiting rooms, absorbing every detail he could. To him, the hospital wasn't just a place of sickness, it was a place of secrets, puzzles waiting to be solved. Still, no one looked at him that way. At best, he was tolerated. At worst, ignored. Doctors in crisp white coats brushed by without a glance, their authority unquestioned. But Marcus carried something they didn't expect: a sharpness of mind, an eye for patterns that others missed. His father always told him, greatness doesn't come from the title on your coat, it comes from what you notice when no one else is watching. And on the night that billionaire was wheeled in, surrounded by the finest medical experts money could buy, Marcus was there silent in the corner, overlooked as always. What no one knew was that this ordinary night would test not just a boy's hidden genius, but the prejudice that kept people like him unseen. The billionaire's condition worsened with every passing minute. Machines beeped frantically, nurses rushed in and out, and the team of 15 doctors spoke in clipped tones, their voices sharp with urgency. Every head turned toward the monitors except Marcus's. His eyes weren't on the screens. They were on the patient. He noticed the billionaire's breathing falter, the subtle twitch in his fingers, the faint discoloration on his lips. Something was wrong, something the doctors weren't seeing. Marcus had read about this once, buried deep in an old medical journal left forgotten in the staff lounge. He remembered every detail. His heart pounded. He wanted to speak up, but who would listen to the janitor's son? He took one step forward. "Excuse me." His voice was small against the storm of medical jargon. One of the doctors shot him a look sharp, dismissive. "Not now, kid." The words cut deep, a reminder of where he stood in their eyes. Nowhere. Minutes slipped away. The doctors tried treatment after treatment, their confidence eroding with each failure. The billionaire's life hung by a thread, and still, Marcus's warning sat locked in his throat. He turned to his father, who was mopping the corner of the room, pretending not to exist. Their eyes met. In that silent moment, Marcus saw the years of resignation in his father's face, the lessons of staying invisible, of surviving by keeping quiet. But Marcus couldn't stay quiet. Not this time. He stepped forward again, louder now. "You're treating the wrong thing." The room froze. 15 doctors, armed with prestige and power, turned to stare at the boy who dared interrupt. One of them barked, "Security, get him out." His father rushed to his side, whispering frantically, "Marcus, don't. please, they won't listen. But Marcus wouldn't stop. His voice shook, but his conviction burned. He pointed to the patient, naming the rare condition he recognized, explaining the subtle signs no one else had noticed. The doctors exchanged doubtful glances, some scoffing outright. A janitor's son telling us medicine? Ridiculous. Their words stung, each syllable a reminder of the barrier between what he knew and what they were willing to believe. Billionaire's monitors wailed louder, pushing the tension higher. One doctor muttered, "We're losing him." Marcus's heart pounded as he realized this was his last chance. If they ignored him now, it would all be over, not just for the billionaire, but for the truth he carried inside him. And then, in a split second, something happened that none of them expected. The room pulsed with chaos alarms blaring. Doctors shouting over one another, hands flying across the billionaire's failing body. Every second stretched like an eternity. Marcus stood frozen in the middle of it all, his words echoing in the silence that followed his outburst. They didn't believe him. They wouldn't believe him. One doctor sneered, "Get him out now." A security guard stepped forward. Marcus's father grabbed his son's arm, his voice breaking. "Marcus, please. You'll ruin everything." But Marcus refused to move. His eyes stayed locked on the billionaire's chest as the monitor flatlined. The doctors launched into resuscitation, their voices trembling with urgency. But Marcus knew it was useless. They were treating the wrong problem. His throat burned with the need to scream, but what good would it do? He was just a janitor's son, and they were the ones with the degrees, the titles, the power. And then it happened. A detail so small, so fleeting, that only Marcus caught it, the faint spasm in the billionaire's jaw, the exact sign he had read about in that forgotten medical journal. It was the final piece of the puzzle, the proof he was right. He shouted again, louder this time, his voice raw with desperation. "You're killing him. It's not his heart, it's his airway. You have to act now." The room turned hostile. "Shut that boy up." One doctor roared. A security guard lunged forward. For a moment, Marcus thought it was over, that his words, his truth, would die here in the noise of arrogance and prejudice. But then one younger doctor hesitated. Her eyes flickered from Marcus to the patient, uncertainty dawning in her face. She stepped closer, scanning the signs he pointed to, her breath catching as realization struck. The billionaire's life hung in that fragile pause between prejudice and possibility, between dismissal and belief. At the very last second, the young doctor followed Marcus's desperate plea. She checked the billionaire's airway, her hands moving quickly, and within moments the truth was undeniable. Marcus had been right all along. The billionaire's breath returned in a fragile gasp, monitors stabilizing, a room full of seasoned doctors stunned into silence, but there was no applause, no acknowledgement. No one rushed to thank the boy who had seen what they couldn't. Instead, the doctors exchanged uneasy glances, their pride bruised, their silence louder than any praise. The billionaire lived, but Marcus was ushered out of the room with his father, as if his presence had been an inconvenience, not the reason a life was saved. That night, Marcus sat beside his father in the quiet of their small apartment. His father placed a hand on his shoulder, eyes heavy with both pride and sorrow. "You were right, son. But in this world, being right isn't always enough, and that's the painful truth of this story." It wasn't just about a billionaire or a hospital. It was about a boy whose voice was nearly silenced because of who he was and where he came from. It was about a system that refuses to see genius in blackness, humility in labor, or brilliance in the overlooked. Marcus's story is not unique. Across history, countless voices have been dismissed, discredited, or erased not because they lacked truth, but because prejudice decided they didn't matter. So the question is this: how many more lives, how many more truths will be lost before we finally learn to listen?